When you look at airports on Earth, you often see airplanes landing and taking off regularly. According to statistics, every day, more than 10 million passengers board over 14,000 different airplanes, traveling to various destinations around the world. This indicates that airplanes connect the main points of the world. As mentioned, there are more than 14,000 airplanes in the world. But where do these airplanes come from? You should know that the largest aircraft manufacturing company in the world is Boeing. Now, in this video with Versa Vista, we intend to take a step back in history to find out where Boeing came from and how it became what it is today. Please stay with us. Let's go back to the early 20th century, around the year 1900, when people didn't even have cars. In those years, if someone wanted to travel, they could only go up to a maximum of 100 kilometers. If they wanted to go further, it was no longer called a trip, and it was really hard to travel in the past. In those years, in 1903, the Wright brothers built and tested the first airplane. Their work revolutionized the world, inspiring anyone with a little knowledge of engineering to dream of building an airplane. Among those engaged in building airplanes was a person named William Edward Boeing. He came from a landowner family, and his parents owned a large number of lands. William became the owner of all these lands, but don't think that William was just wealthy and untalented. He was versatile and very intelligent, handling many decisions on his own. Although William inherited money from his parents, he invested in various industries. The most famous of these was shipbuilding. As we reach the year 1914, Boeing sees an airplane up close for the first time. He likes it so much that he approaches the owner and says, "I can fly with this plane." And the owner agrees. When William Boeing boards the plane, he falls in love with it and decides he must buy one. When he asks where he can buy an airplane, someone suggests going to Glenn L. Martin. Boeing places an order, and Martin builds and delivers the airplane. Boeing also has a friend named George Westervelt, who, like Boeing, is passionate about airplanes. When Westervelt sees Boeing has bought one, he suggests making some changes to improve it. They decide to add 2 small wings under the plane to make it more stable in the air. These modifications make the airplane much better, and William is so happy with the changes that he decides to start an aviation company. He names it Pacific Aero Products Company and gives the modified plane name Blue Bill. Boeing became deeply involved in aviation and left other ventures behind, focusing entirely on aircraft manufacturing. In his new company, he hired 13 employees, including George Westervelt, who had proposed the changes to the airplane. When World War I breaks out, George Westervelt is called to serve, and Boeing changes the company's name to Boeing. The first product of the newly named Boeing is a plane called Boeing Model C, capable of both water and land landings. The US Navy likes it so much that they order 50 of them. After the war, the aviation market declined, and Boeing faced the challenge of keeping employees. Instead of laying them off, Boeing tells them to build furniture using wood and other materials in the factory. This move helps Boeing retain workers, and William personally contributes $700 a week from his own pocket. 3 years after the war, in 1923, Boeing designed the MB-3A airplane, priced at $7,000. The U.S. Army orders 200 of them immediately. However, the aviation industry faces difficulties, and Boeing has to adapt to the changing circumstances. In 1928, Boeing acquired the engine manufacturing company Pratt & Whitney, further expanding its operations. As Boeing grows, William envisions creating airplanes that can transport people. In 1930, Boeing produces the Model 80 airplane with a capacity for 12 passengers. By 1934, the U.S. government accuses Boeing of creating a monopoly in the aviation industry, leading to a separation of Boeing and the airline and engine manufacturing sectors. Boeing becomes solely focused on aircraft manufacturing, while United Airlines takes over the passenger carrying division, and United Aircraft Corporation handles engine production. Despite these challenges, Boeing continues to thrive. During World War II, Boeing produces the B-17 bomber, the largest bomber of its time. The company faces increased pressure to produce more aircraft for the war effort, and Boeing responds by manufacturing 12,000 B-17 bombers, earning $240,000 for each one. In the post-war period, Boeing designs and builds various aircraft, including the Boeing 307, a highly regarded passenger plane. However, in 1944, the U.S. government demanded Boeing's separation to eliminate the perceived monopoly. William Boeing sold the company, and Boeing Corporation became a corporation managed by a board of directors. Despite selling the company, William Boeing continues to have a lasting impact on aviation. The Boeing Company becomes a major player in the aviation industry, producing over 80,000 aircraft by 1944. The iconic B-29 bomber, capable of carrying 2 atomic bombs, is a notable achievement for Boeing during this period. World War II comes to an end, and Boeing faces a recession. They are forced to lay off 69,000 employees until Stalin comes to the rescue with assistance from American arms manufacturing companies. In 1949, as atomic bombs were being tested, the Cold War intensified between the United States and the Soviet Union. On the other side of the world, the Korean War breaks out, and America is compelled to get involved. These developments lift Boeing from its economic downturn, and the company experiences growth once again. Their productions become unparalleled worldwide, such as the giant bomber B-47 and the even larger B-52, which has been in service for nearly 70 years and is still not retired. After this intense competition in Soviet weaponry, a new competition begins. They launch the space probe Sputnik, and America, realizing it's falling behind, starts the space race. A few years later, Yuri Gagarin became the first astronaut to orbit the Earth. With the United States trailing, President John F. Kennedy officially announced the goal of landing a man on the moon. When the discussion turns to space exploration, the American Space Agency, NASA, approaches Boeing, asking them to build rockets due to their prior experience with missile development. In the 1950s, Boeing decided to return to passenger aviation, converting the B-47 bomber into a successful passenger plane named the Boeing 707. Boeing continues to prosper, producing a significant aircraft, the Boeing 737, in the 1960s, which became the best-selling passenger plane in history. The Boeing 737, including newer models like the Boeing 737 MAX 8, is still in production, maintaining its popularity despite the challenges it faced, including incidents that led to temporary groundings. In 1969, Boeing introduced the iconic Boeing 747, a colossal plane that became known as the Queen of the Skies. In the 1970s, European countries found Airbus, aiming to challenge Boeing's dominance. While Airbus struggles, Boeing continues to grow. In the 1990s, Boeing produces the Boeing 777, a highly successful aircraft, and introduces the 737 MAX, an improved version of its older counterpart. In 2009, they unveiled the Boeing 787, a relatively large and successful plane. Boeing remains a major player, not only manufacturing commercial airplanes, but also working with the military, producing missiles, and collaborating with SpaceX and NASA. Currently, Boeing is a powerhouse with a net worth exceeding $125 billion, making it the largest aerospace company globally. The company's shares are valued at $208. Thanks for being with Versa Vista once again.